This episode of Talk Raytown is brought to you by Jason Snedden with Greater KC Homes. Whether you're buying or selling, Greater KC Homes turns your dreams into reality. Jason Snedden is your local agent to help you invest in your future. Greater KC Homes is by your side every step of the way. The only name you need to know in real estate is Greater KC Homes, helping people achieve the dream of home ownership. Call Jason at 816-642-5319 or jason at greaterkchomes.com.
This is the part when people turn off the podcast. No. Welcome back to Talk Raytown with the Raytown Chamber. I'm Zach Sweets. We're still deciding on whether or not I'm the host, but I'm the host again this time. And I am pleased to be joined here at the Gnarly Hustle Foolish Club podcast studio by Dave Turner. Now, you've certainly seen Dave in the community. And if you haven't, then I suggest you get outside more, because Dave is the director of Parks and Rec for the city of Raytown. And now, Dave, you don't look old enough for this to be true, but I'm told you've been around the city of Raytown for 25 years. You started when you were 10 years old?
It felt like it. I had all those skills. But no, May of 1999. Yeah, was when I first started at the city of Raytown.
So you know where all the dead tree limbs are buried then?
Yes.
Do you get enough of the parks puns?
Skeletons that I don't know about.
Well, and you've been the director now, so obviously you weren't director that whole time. You were named director back in 2018, February 2018. But where did you start? That's always a great, especially when you hear folks have been around for 20 plus years. Where did you start? Were you cutting grass? What were you up to?
Okay, I was actually was a college grad, had been working in Kirkwood Parks and Rec over in St. Louis side for about a year, and applied over here and got the sports and special events position. And that is, in other communities, they have several people that run events or several people that handle the sports in town, and in Raytown we had one. So that was it. If it was any type of event going on at the Parks Department, I had my hand on that for about 18 years.
No small task.
No. The arts and music festivals, softball leagues, tennis lessons. We just did. If it was a public event, that was my job. Yeah.
What's a public event that you just won't probably forget? Or maybe even just one particular year. Do you have any good park stories where you're like, man, there was one year it rained, or man, it was really hot out, or there's something like that?
Yeah, the first year we ran the Arts and Music Festival, it was kind of wild. We'd have 5 bands scheduled for the day, local artists selling goods there, food trucks, things like that. And the second year that we put that on, it did rain. And I mean, it was a September day, and it was like 48 degrees and raining. And that's about as miserable as it gets.
Yep.
And it was like, I literally, for a while there, I just, instead of having a breakdown, I just closed myself in my truck. I just got in the car. It was just like, because you put all the effort into that. We ran that off of sponsorships. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to advertise for all of our local businesses that support us so much. And it was just, God was not letting it happen that day. It was just a no. The answer was no.
So in 25 years, you've seen everything, rain, shine, and certainly your fair share of mud. But what is something that if you were to go back and tell yourself 25 years ago, hey, you might think you know what parks department in a city is about, but let me tell you something that I've learned in these past 25 years. What would be that piece of advice to yourself?
Really, it's a couple different things. One is what volunteers do for an organization. People don't think about it a lot because there's no other industry that relies on volunteers. Maybe church,
Sure.
something like that. But what volunteers do is amazing. When I first got hired, I was think, what kind of value is a volunteer? There's no money saying they're going to show up.
Sure.
I don't know what they're going to do. And that was my inexperience at that time. When the reality is that they are choosing to help you. They are choosing to be there. This is somebody that is generally has their life in well enough order they can donate some time to go help you out with your problems. So generally they're people that are well together, and they want to be there. They want to make a difference in the community. So when people come with that right attitude, it's like the attitude of employees. If you have an employee with a bad attitude, that poisons the whole pot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you have volunteers that come in and are dedicated to improving the community, it's just the same thing. That improves the whole pot. That makes everything better. And to have those people back year after year, whether they've adopted a certain park they want to clean up or they've adopted a certain event that we have, they come to it with the right attitude, and that makes all the difference. People can feel it. When people are out in there for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people can feel whenever they're valued and that they're appreciated for showing up, especially when it's a volunteer situation. Right. Now, I could venture a guess based off of that answer, but what has kept you in the Raytown community for 25 years? What about working with the Parks Department that keeps you coming back and wanting to invest? I think anybody that has heard your report before the board or seen you at any volunteer organization, you were passionate about this community.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's it. I have bought in. Just like I talked about the volunteers just now and the right attitude. Once you find these certain things that build success on their own, it'd be hard to move somewhere else and pick that up. I already know all of the social groups in town, work with a lot of the big churches in town, work with a lot of the small churches in town, the Boy Scout groups, all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And not only do I like seeing all those individuals, I think that puts me many steps above somebody else coming in and doing the job that I'm doing right now. I think that was really the only reason I got the job, is that I was so familiar with the problem specifically in Raytown,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically what our condition is and what we've been doing up to this point to solve
Mm-hmm.
it. And sometimes we have to look at those things and say, well, we've been doing this up to this point, and it's time to change gears. This is not going our way. We're putting entirely too much effort for the results we're getting, something like that. And just having those years already put in makes me even more dedicated. And it's maybe that's a glutton for punishment kind of thing.
Maybe a little.
But I do kind of have it in the back of my mind, what happens to an organization when somebody has been there for 40 years? When they've had their hands on everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I want to see. I'm pretty dedicated. And in fact, we did have a 40-year employee that retired here about 3 or 4 years ago. He did walk in at 20 years old and filled out an application to cut the grass, and ended up like our number 2 in the maintenance department. Working with guys like that have been there for 30 years, 40 years, it's fantastic because they do know all the tricks. That's one of those things where it's like they have seen it all. Or back in 1982 when we built this thing, and it was just like, my gosh, 82. Yeah, he was there. That was him.
Yeah. So you mentioned the volunteer side of it. What has it been like working with some of your folks? Because when I think of public employees, as municipal employees, the ones that I think folks don't oftentimes think about are your public works employees and then your parks employees. And both departments tend to be larger for your cities. Those where you have a lot of employees. What has that been like? Because I don't hear too many revolving stories about Raytown's employees like that. There's always a need for more employees, new employees. But when some folks, when they get here, they spend their service here with Raytown. What has that dedication from the employee side of things looked like?
Well, I really love those type of employees. Especially the local ones. Raytown resident, they've been here for 26 years, 28 years, something like that. And again, they are highly competent at their job at this point. They have several tricks up their sleeves. When something isn't going right, this is what we did last time. This is something else that we could try to address this situation. And with maintenance guys specifically, the ingenuity that these guys have is incredible. When we say we need this, we have to install a scoreboard, they build the frame to put it on, and hang it 15 feet high. They fabricate that, they put it in their mind's eye, they put it down on paper, they build it. And those type of skills are really impressive to me. When you say, this is an issue, we're going to build something that's multiple thousand pounds, we're going to move it over to here, we're going to install it, and then we're going to hang a put electric to it, and the scoreboard is going to work. When people don't break those items down like that, but I've seen it so many times where it's just like, okay, we need to install this thing that's giant and heavy and massive, and they're like, oh yeah, this is how we do it.
It's almost like they're doing back of the napkin math really quick. They've seen it 6 times at least.
That's it.
So yeah.
And so when those long-standing employees like that, you want to give them the slack to use their tools. Basically, it's like this. Show me what you have. Mm-hmm. Let's do it. It has to be safe. It has to be durable, and it's always great. But we also have to be budget minded on some of those things. So just out of necessity, we fabricate a whole lot of items, whether those are bollards to keep people from driving, up through walkways or things like that, giant signboards, just sports equipment, playgrounds, they're pretty handy guys.
Yeah. Well, and so you mentioned the budget side of this, and when we're talking about the parks department, I think you mentioned it is 4% of the city's revenue. General revenue that gets allocated to your department that you oversee and that pays for employees and other things like that. But we'll kind of come back around to that because there's something that you all are that's spectacular, and it's the fact that the city's general revenue is about $1.3 million, but yet the Parks Department has somehow found $4 million in grant money to pull in for the community. We did hear from Damon Hodges, the city administrator, before on a previous episode, and he talked about just the huge win one of those grants are for the community and how it's no local money for that big one. But I'll let you kind of give us more of an update and tell us how is the Parks Department winning so much? A very popular grant that we go out for is the Land Water Conservation Fund grant, and they finally upped that dollar amount to a massive amount, $1 million project. And typically we pay half, 50%, and then the Department of Interior pays half. It's actually national parks and all that stuff is the funding for that. And that's what we applied for tennis courts, Sure.
projects like that. We've had several tennis courts and other park projects, walking trails, paid for by that. But once they upped that to $1 million, we applied for it. We're doing a demolition job on 53rd Street up in Raytown. That is going to start here in probably about 4 weeks. And then again, we will be paying out the $1 million project and then be getting reimbursed $500,000. So that's roughly how that's going to be. And that will finish us off with having nice flat grass on one side of the property and a dog park on the other side of the property. So dog park and splash pad were items that citizens of Raytown have been asking about a lot. All of our surveys have come back. Those are the top 2 items. So those are the 2 things that we're going to try to bring with some of this funding.
Okay.
The other side of that was an omnibus funded grant, and that was through Congressman Cleaver's office. He asked us to see if we would be willing to apply for that. That is a 100% funded grant, so that will be $3 million to finish up the park, the vacant side of the park, and renovate that, as well as doing some improvements at Carnegie Park.
Okay.
Make that a little bit more handicap accessible, ADA compliant. We have a 1960s restroom on that property that is not ADA compliant. We need to replace that. Change our skate park equipment around. We're closing in on 20 years for the skate park being there. So all those updates are needed, and we're going to use that $3 million funding for those items. So what the city of Raytown, or the citizens, are getting is basically $4 million worth of work for a $500,000 investment. So our match on that total project is, again, the $500,000. You're talking about for 12% of the total project
Yeah.
cost, we're getting all those projects completed. So I'm very happy about that. Grant work is awful. I mean, it is just awful. Applying for it, the reporting on it, the compliance, it adds a lot of extra costs as far as environmental studies, engineering fees, things like that. But when you don't have the cash flow, you have to make the money appear, and that's a long way around of getting the money to appear.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, and it sounds like it's a necessary part of the process in some ways, but you hit the nail on the head. But the value that the citizens are getting, with that low buy-in from the local from the city to have that buy-in, the rest covered there, is incredible. What does having, if it's not grants, if it's, let's say there's a surplus in the city budget and parks gets more allocations, what does a better funded parks department mean? And I'm not saying that it's underfunded. I'm just saying, if there was more money in your department's budget, what does that mean for Raytown citizens? What do they get for that?
Right. Well, there's a couple items that we would look to add. Some of that would be staffing, because again, back 25 years ago, I was the one and only sports and special events guy, and we still have one guy doing all those items. It's not a job for one person to handle the needs of 30,000 people.
Sure.
Old, young, and in between, of all abilities. We need to have a little more capacity there to offer more things to the public, to make more contacts with the public, and to work with donors and sponsors and businesses that want to have events, and they want to be seen in the community too. And having more capacity right there, I think it's a no-brainer. Everybody would like to see more types of events, different types of events, different type of sporting opportunities in town, youth sports all the way up to adult and 50 plus. We have a very strong 50 plus softball group in town that actually travels nationally and competes nationally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's it. Having the staff to cover all the ground. We operate about 170 acres of property. We have to maintain, and 12 beautification areas in town, 10 welcome to Raytown signs on 50 Highway and all these places, and just nothing beats having the competent staff. You got to have competent people that show up and are doing the work. They're the ones that are taking care of us.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. When we're thinking about what the community has before it, you mentioned the 100 and how many acres?
About 170 acres.
170 acres. Now, I'm going to pretend like I knew this and we didn't have this conversation before, but for all intents and purposes, you got to ask Dave to know how big a regulation, if you will, size park is. A regulation size park is 10 to 12 acres.
That's pretty standard. That's a lot of our parks are that size. It gets hard to do if you're working much smaller than that. You could probably put something in a 5-acre park or something, but that would be considered like a small neighborhood park. Definitely not a destination park. Nobody is going to be driving across town to go to visit their 4 acres kind of thing. Whereas if you have that 12 acres, Carnegie Park I think is 18 acres. Now you're up to a spot where you have a 3/4 mile walking trail.
Sure.
You have some tennis courts, you have some opportunities, you have a pond out there, that people can fish at. So that's it. It takes space. It takes space. It takes some acreage to have these opportunities.
So for the future of parks in Raytown and then further development of parks in Raytown, how does that reality, which is something that the city is thinking about constantly, just being landlocked, right?
Right.
But what does your department think? How do you think about that as part of your opportunities moving forward to, present more value to their citizens?
Well, it is very difficult because there are no 15-acre pieces of land in Raytown anymore that are available. So whenever land comes up for sale bordering one of our parks, we try to buy that. We've had offers from a couple different larger properties or even retail properties. Would we be interested in trying to purchase that? we're not financially in a position to purchase, like a 15-acre property right now, when we're committed to these grant projects. But we have to start making those moves somewhere, because it's not going to be cheaper in 20 years down the line to, make land out of thin air.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to be the case. So, we have to plan for that. We actually did have a home that was donated to us at the middle of summer last year. It was a condemned piece of property. The homeowner didn't have any capacity to make either repairs or tear it down, and they actually came forward to us and said, if I donate this to you as is, would you take this property off my hands? And we're like, thank you. Yes,
it's a creative solution, and we'll take it.
This is it. And so for the cost of demoing some property and removing all the material and all that stuff, we got another, whatever it was, almost half acre of property to Carnegie Park.
That's great.
So it was good. It was good that we were able to do that. We had a little bit of money tucked aside. There's always a little bit there in case opportunity pops up. You don't want to be flat-footed when something like that happens and we say, no, we won't take the property you're trying to give us. Are you crazy? No. You have to be able to do those things.
Absolutely.
So that worked.
Well, that's great. So, looking at what you have planned for the department, for the city, kind of moving forward, what's kind of some of the more immediate things that you're looking? Obviously, you're working those grant projects, and that's perpetual, like you said, reporting, and that's kind of taken the life of its own, and will continue until the completion of those projects. What else is before your department, before the city? Perhaps maybe tax revenue questions.
Yeah, we will be going out before November of 2025 for a sales tax. Our sales tax is sunsetting. We have a 1/8 cent sales tax. And if it was only paid by the citizens of Raytown, which, anybody coming through and buying something, that we get a piece of 1/8 of 1 cent. But that tax will sunset in March of 2026. So November of 2025 is the last opportunity we have to at least renew it, if not extend that a little bit more. And what 1/8 of a cent means to a citizen, again, if it was only paid by Raytown citizens, you're looking at $14 a year. So the citizens pay $14 a year to have access to, 9 park properties, historical preservation sites, Rice Dramani. We have BMX. We're on a national scene on BMX. We had a national race last year. We have state race this year. We're going to go for another national race next year. Little Blue Trace, where we're hosting the Little League baseball out there. So all of those opportunities for that sales tax, it's $1.20 a month per citizen. So that's it. That's not asking too much for that 1/8 cent sales tax, and honestly, we probably need to increase that to a 3/8 cent, just so we can keep up. Again, our staffing levels are low. Park equipment is not getting any cheaper, and we did a salary comparison of 2013 to 2023. With the Board of Aldermen, and it showed that staffing levels in 2013 were like 36% of the budget, and staffing levels in 2023 are now at 62% of our budget.
Okay.
And we still have the same amount of staff. We're still working with 9 people here. In fact, we have not had a budget increase since 2003. Oh. We're talking 21 years we've been operating under the same dollar amounts.
Interesting.
So it's becoming difficult. It's not a tenable position to not address that. It just kind of needs to be addressed. We do also split our park sales tax with stormwater. 25% of that goes to the city stormwater needs.
Okay.
So it's not only our department that is getting the benefit out of that funding, it is also stormwater and the needs of our storm sewer system.
I hear folks say that we want to make insert city's name, insert state's name, a great place to live, work, and play.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to think of what work looks like in a city, commuting and things like that. I think it's easy to think about what live looks like, the place where you reside and go home to. But the play part, I personally, I can only speak for myself, don't always think about the role that Parks and Rec plays. And I know that sounds dumb.
Right.
But you just list off a whole host of things that one tax helps support to make Raytown a place to live, work, and play. What are some other upcoming events that you all are saying, hey, Raytown's open for everybody to come and enjoy these events while they're in town?
Sure. Well, we always have a tennis lesson or another session of something coming up, tennis lessons and tennis leagues. And then we have the Raytown Live concert series. That'll be July 13th is our next one coming up. It's the second Saturday of every month, all the way through till September 14th. Live concerts up on the green space. Those are great events. And then coming up on September 14th as well, we're going to have the Festival of the Trails at the Rice Tremonti home. That's live reenactments out there. That is actually on the Santa Fe Trail. The Rice Tremonti home is on the Santa Fe, Oregon, and California historical trails. And we have a great group of volunteers out there too that help operate and maintain that property. They rent out that house if you wanted to have a fantastic Christmas at a big house and invite everybody over. You can do that.
Yeah. Well, no, I actually really appreciate the conversation, and like I said, for parks, I can understand there's a park over there.
Right.
I can understand maybe there's a splash pad or some. The thought about what else goes into keeping this city, any city, a place that folks can find some recreation and to be outside. I mean, Missouri is not the most forgiving of weather places, but we do have amazing times a year to be out and to be active. And so I appreciate the work that you do, work that your team does, and keeping folks active and giving folks in the community of Raytown something to go and do. I know that the Festival of Trails and the upcoming concert series was something that I understand somebody at the city was like, we should do something, and all of a sudden something's happening and folks expect to see it every year. So it's always good whenever the community goes, are we doing that again?
Yeah. Well, and you know what I mean, you look at other communities too, and that is what makes the community. That's where people can get together. That's where they can have discussions. That's where they can come have fellowship, a good time, try new foods, see the new art. We do have 2 new pieces of art, public art, that we installed this year. One in front of City Hall, one at Coleman Park. We have another one in the Pocket Park. That's an art sharing program that we're in. But you look at the sports, how people get brought together by sports, either rooting for or against somebody.
Sure.
They can share a bond with that. And I was talking earlier about our 50-plus softball program. Is that those guys are so dedicated. Like, they are on their team. They're razzing each other. Mm-hmm. But, my God, on Tuesday night, you couldn't keep them away from this place. You know what I mean? On Wednesday night, on their league night, there's no place they'd rather be. And that's what we bring to the community, is those things, those opportunities like the little leagues, this, pee-wee soccer, those type of deals, where, our basketball league is crazy. If you ever want to see just complete chaos, come to kindergarten basketball.
Oh, no.
That is nuts. Our officials, don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah. How do I officiate this?
What is happening?
You all get technicals.
Right. But, I mean, that's where things start. That's where you start developing those friendships. That's where you start developing your skills, your physical abilities. So it's just so many of those things in line that the parks gives you the opportunity to do, and gives you the space to do it and sets it all up for you. So it's fantastic. Something else I really just like about the Parks Department and where I work is that it's so seasonal. Like you said, the weather, everybody hates July in Kansas City, but, when it's July, I'm already looking for fall and what we need to do for fall. And when it's fall, I'm already looking at spring and winter. What do we need to do next? And so that keeps up, because it changes. It changes. Right. What we should be focusing on every 3 months is something totally different. and you don't get that just anywhere. But when you're kind of tied to outdoor spaces, you're forced to work like that, and I've grown to kind of like that.
No, well, I appreciate your service to the city of Raytown. It's noticed, and I appreciate you making time to just come have a conversation for everybody to kind of hear what does the park director do, but also why does it matter? I mean, it matters, but
right.
To be able to have that touch point. One thing before we go, you talked about passionately the volunteers. If I wanted to be a volunteer, where should I go?
Okay, it depends on what capacity you want. We even have Eagle Scout projects. They just call me on the phone and say, "Is there something I can do for you?" And I was like, "We'll find something." If you have a service group that you're working with, a church group that you're working with, in fact, Graceway Church, what was it, June 8th, they brought out like 75 volunteers, and they hit every one of our park properties and did a litter pickup, and that it was right after a big storm we had on May 25th, and they're piling up branches for us and stuff like this. Just putting it out there, we can find something for whoever you are. We'll find something that'll suit your group or you individually, and let you make a difference and let you help us out too. So yeah, that's great.
I love it. So find Dave Turner, come by the city, give him a call. If you're looking to serve your community and volunteering whenever you have, however many people you have and however much time you have. Well, Dave, thank you so much.
That's fun.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back whenever the 53rd Street property is completed and you have gone completely gray from all of the reporting. From all that reporting. But thank you for joining Talk Raytown with the Raytown Chamber. And we'll be back again. Don't you worry. We'll have another great guest. Take care.